This is the closest thing I have to a Planet of the Apes shirt. It's King Kong. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the follow-up to the preceding Planet of the Apes preboot trilogy, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes. We now fast forward 300 years after the events of War for the Planet of the Apes. Human civilization as we know it has long gone, humans have gone feral, and the apes have taken over as the dominant species on the planet, and now we have a new adventure centering around a young ape named Noah, as he discovers some things that are going on, vaguely speaking, a wise orangutan named Raka, and a young human girl named May, and a kingdom ruled by the tyrannical Proximus Caesar. And now we have our 2.5 hour long movie that is the first of a new Planet of the Apes trilogy. I give you a vague summation of the premise because the trailers were pretty vague about the premise. Because going into this movie, after watching all the trailers, I didn't really know what it was about other than what I just told you. And yeah, this movie being just about 2.5 hours long, it is a lot to take in. And also, this is following what I've heard some people call the very best movie trilogy ever made. Period. And yeah, I will say those 3 movies are excellent. They're fantastic movies. If you haven't seen them, you're doing yourself a disservice. Watch them. Needless to say, this movie has some pretty big shoes to fill. And I thought this movie was pretty damn cool. Alright, our main character Noah is played by Owen Teague, aka Patrick Hockstetter from the It movies. He was great in this movie, and I like the fact that our main character now is not the leader of the apes, he's a commoner. I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved Caesar as the main character in the preceding trilogy, yeah. But Noah here is also quite relatable. Cause actually kinda like Caesar, he's given this problem that he now has to deal with. He didn't ask for any of this, but now he just kind of has to go on this adventure. He's got an emotional reason for it, absolutely, especially with this human kid named May, played by Freya Allan, who you may know from the Witcher series on Netflix. This character has a lot of interesting qualities about her that I really don't want to spoil. I know the last couple of trailers did. When I saw those last couple of trailers, I was like, they should not have shown that in the trailer, so I don't want to say what they are here, just in case you haven't seen those trailers yet, although I probably just gave it away by saying that, but whatever. Freya Allan is fantastic in this movie. Also, because you gotta think about the fact that when they were filming this, you know that she was in her normal attire while interacting with guys in mocap suits playing the apes. And so on her part, that required a lot more imaginative acting. Gotta give her all sorts of props. But Raka, the orangutan, is my favorite character in the movie, and why didn't he get his own character poster? I'm sorry, that just baffles me. But I love this character because he's wise, he's polite, he also has his funny moments. There's nothing I didn't like about him. Whenever he was on screen, I had a smile on my face for the most part. And then there's our villain, Proximus Caesar, played by Kevin Durand, who we just saw in the movie Abigail. I thought he was also interesting. There's more to him in this movie than was let on in the trailers. Of course, I won't give that away here, because again, spoiler free, being vague. I think what I liked about this character most was his deep voice. He just sounded like an evil king with the concept of evolution. He has a lot of cool lines in this movie, actually. I'll give him that too. Some of which I thought were among the best in the movie. And I also really like his design. That crown is badass. Now, of course, one of the biggest selling points of this movie in particular is the visual effects. You gotta look at this world that this movie creates 300 years after the events of the preceding trilogy. I mean, think about it. The beginning of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the first one, it takes place in modern human civilization. So the world is the world we know. Now it's 300 years later and everything is just gone to shit. It's cool to see the buildings are all like broken and decrepit. They have plant life growing all over them. It's pretty much post-apocalypse, like The Last of Us or something. But just looking at it, especially in this movie, at least how I was watching it, I was like, wow, this building or whatever this human device is, that used to be used by humans in our modern civilization. You just think about it, your brain goes wild with it. But now we have these ape civilizations and they do feel very lived in. Like apes have been the predominant species on the planet for a while. And they have their own systems and cultures and ways of life, not all of which is like we humans, because they don't have modern technology. They're not quite there yet. Their civilization and way of life is still pretty primal. So I'll be honest, everything about their ways of life I didn't quite understand. It was just a little harder for me to relate to, but still cool to see on screen. And also some pretty solid moments of tension in this movie. I wouldn't really call this an action movie. It is more of a drama adventure, kind of like the last movie, War for the Planet of the Apes. There are a couple of action scenes, yeah, some scenes where it gets intense, but I would definitely call this movie more of an epic adventure drama. And yeah, definitely some tense moments between the characters, especially between Noah and Proximus Caesar. There are some scenes with the dialogue between them. You feel the tension just winding like a guitar string ready to snap. That was pretty well done. Not all the writing is completely smooth though, I will admit. Example, around the character May, again, gonna try to be as vague as I possibly can. So all I'll say is that not everything about her was executed in the smoothest way possible. If I decide to do a spoiler video on this movie, I'll dive more into this point then, but I haven't decided yet. My biggest real gripe about this movie is one that not everyone might share, and that is the fact that it is pretty slow paced. Like I said, it's 2.5 hours long. That makes this the longest movie yet of this pre-boot Planet of the Apes series, and you do feel those 2.5 hours. They don't fly by. No, I call this movie a slow burn even. And I know that might be just me because my attention span is getting shorter every day, I'll admit it. I just can't deny the fact that the movie felt like it was dragging a few times. I don't feel like this movie had to be 2.5 hours long. I think it definitely could have been a little shorter. Also, there are quite a few Easter eggs and references in this film to the original Planet of the Apes from the 60s. I don't know if I'd call them fan service, and they are few and far between, but if you know the original films really well, then you'll notice them a lot. If you don't, then you won't notice that this is a reference because the movie doesn't go out of its way to be like, hey, here's a reference. No, they're actually woven into the story or at least the scene somehow. I appreciate that. Last but not least, the score written by John Pisano, who I know for composing the scores for the Daredevil Netflix series and the Insomniac Spider-Man games. The score here was really good. I didn't really pick up on a predominant theme. It does use some themes sometimes from previous installments of the franchise though. Again, if you know them, you know them. If you don't, then you won't notice. But I did like that. In the end, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I feel it's a pretty welcome return to this franchise. I like this new story. I like the new characters. I want to see where this new story goes from here, especially after that ending. I love the world this movie builds up, that's for sure. I'll say if I had to describe this movie in one word, I would use the word interesting. This is a very interesting movie, which ain't no bad thing. That's really cool, if not a little slow-paced at times. Just undeniable for me. For Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. So, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, have you seen it yet? What are your thoughts on it? If you haven't, are you looking forward to it? What are you most excited to see in it? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!